Good evening, everyone. As part of our Stories for Life event, I'm joined via the miracle of Zoom by the person who helped found Fresno's Rachel's Vineyard ministry and worked with Rights Life of Central California, worked with the Roman Catholic Diocese of Fresno, local pro-life legend, Jennifer Butcher. So Jennifer, welcome to our broadcast, hailing all the way from Lincoln, Nebraska. Thank you for joining us.
Oh, thanks for having me. I don't know about a legend, but I'll take the compliment. Thank you.
All right. Well, so to give people the context for your legendary status, in my eyes anyway, tell people a little bit about how you worked to establish the Rachel's Vineyard ministry in Fresno. Obviously, it's a national thing, but you need boots on the ground locally to get these things going. Actually, before that, maybe just describe to people, for those who don't know, some of our supporters may not know, what Rachel's Vineyard is and how it works to help people who have gone through the experience of abortion.
It's basically to help women, men, people who've been touched by abortion in any way, to come to terms with that, to find healing, to move forward in their life with something that they can't undo. And so the ministry, psychological, emotional, spiritual healing takes place throughout the weekend. And basically it's, been around since the 90s, and it's grown, and the format pretty much is the same. It's so effective that it really doesn't need much changing. And we started in Fresno back in, I think it was around 1999, 2000, when it first started kind of coming across our radar. I had been doing pro-life work at my parish, and my pastor at the time called me and Pat Lametti, who's our team counselor, into his office and said, "We need to get this Rachel's Vineyard thing going." And I had known about it because I had done Project Rachel work for the diocese, which is more one-on-one individual counseling for post-abortion healing. And so we said, okay, we could do this, Monsignor, but it can't be like at our parish. It's too big, and it needs to be too confidential to be like a parish-based ministry. And so I went and took two of my helpers who have been doing pro-life work with me at the parish, and we went down and experienced a weekend just to see what it was all about. And it was just incredible. It was just, there's hardly any words to describe what happens on a Rachel's Vineyard weekend. The dynamic is different every time. And we have an amazing team that helps make that happen. And so we brought it to the diocese and said, we want to do this. And at the time, because I had been doing volunteer work for the diocese, that's kind of just naturally where I went with it. It doesn't have to be a part of a diocese officially. But we went to them and said, we want to do this. What do you think? And so they said, sure, you can do it. I mean, you're not formally a ministry of the diocese, but we'll support you. And so that's kind of where we started from there. And I started to build my team.
And understanding that the people who are participating in this are all people who have had some involvement in abortion in their past. What are some of the specific things that they go through that help to bring about that healing? Some of the specific things that are done.
Sure. It's a pretty amazing experience in that we begin on Friday evening and we go all the way through Sunday afternoon. And it's really, truly a resurrection experience where we start with Good Friday. And then by Sunday, you see this amazing transformation. And it's based on scripture. And we do these exercises throughout the weekend, starting with just, figuring out, why are you here? What is it that made you feel like you needed help and healing? And so you're going through this Good Friday experience. You're going into the scriptures and you're doing scriptures like, the woman at the well and stuff like that. And you're meeting and you're encountering Jesus in these exercises. And then there's usually like a ritual that goes along with it, something tangible and physical that you do to really put yourself in that place. It's very Ignatian in that style of, putting yourself in the place of the scripture and really experiencing it so that you can really receive the love of Christ and the healing of Christ through each of these exercises throughout the weekend. And then, of course, there's a portion of the weekend where you're just sharing your story. You're just saying how you got here. What was your life like before? what happened? How did you end up in this abortion experience or experiences? Or if you were an employee, we've had people who worked for abortion providers and needed healing from that. Yeah, we've had grandparents. We've had, I'll never forget, we had one woman who did not have the abortion herself, but she experienced it with a roommate. A roommate had taken the RU486. And as you probably know, that is basically where you have to suffer that abortion experience by yourself at home. And, you know, this gal had to sit there and watch her roommate go through this in her own home, which is a whole nother level of trauma, taking it out of the doctor's office and into your own home. So all kinds of people come to us for that kind of healing. And so you get to share your story, how you got there, and then, you know, what is it you're here for? What are you seeking? You know, some people it's anger, some people it's self-loathing, some people it's anger at God, you know, it's relationship issues. It's kind of different for everybody. Some people just are suicidal. I mean, some people have been through therapy and they have not been able to get to the core of it. And others have never spoken a word. I mean, I remember a woman who was in her 90s and had it in her 20s and long before it was legal and never spoke a word.
Oh, wow.
70 years, comes to our weekend and can share that with people in a safe environment.
Now, one of the things you mentioned early on was about confidentiality. And I know within the context of our retreats, we always have to have at least some kind of professional. Our board member and dear friend, Patty Lametti, is a clinical social worker. What is sort of the role of those kinds of professionals within the context of a Rachel's Vineyard retreat?
Absolutely. Two main components on our weekend, which is essential, is to have a trained therapist, whether they be a social worker or a psychologist, psychiatrist, somebody who has been trained to work through some of these issues, because some are very delicate. Some people are very much depressed. And I mean, you just have to watch out for all these things. And we as lay people are not trained to do that. So we have Patty on our team. And then we also have a priest. So we happen to have what we consider a Catholic team, though we have non-Catholic members. So for us, the sacramental healing is crucial. And so we have a priest on our weekends. Now, there are non-denominational teams out there, and they'll have a pastor of some sort on the weekends, because we know psychologically that we need to be integrated people, right? We need to be psychologically, emotionally, spiritually healed all at the same time. We can't compartmentalize this. And that's why so many people come to us after being in therapy all these years, but they never dealt with the spiritual aspect, or people who've only been to confession, but they've never been to a therapist. So it's that perfect integration. And so Patty, you know, that therapeutic side of it, they walk these people through these exercises, and she can just hone in on, if she sees somebody doing something that needs addressing, you know, that kind of thing. So she has that professional skill to identify that and help that person work through it. And obviously, not everything's going to wrap up in a weekend, but a lot of it is just doors opening. And then afterwards, we get them the follow-up help that they need, if they need one-on-one counseling or medication, you know, whatever the kind of thing, we head them in the right direction to professionals who can help them.
Great. So what would you say as we're getting, you know, last 5 minutes or so here, what would you say to someone who's watching this, who has maybe had an abortion in their past? And what would you say to someone, because we might have someone watching this right now, what would you say to someone who maybe has had an abortion in their past? They're not sure about, you know, is this something I want to do? What would be maybe your elevator pitch to someone who might be in this very situation?
Sure. I think be not afraid, you know, that this is the safest place you'll ever come to try to find that healing that you seek so deep in your soul. You're going to be surrounded by love and sympathy, and most of the team is post-abortion up that phone and calling my hotline. The second hardest part is getting out of the car when you get up to the retreat house. But once that happens, I mean, I was just reading through some letters over the last almost 20 years of our retreats, and I was just blown away by the responses that we get from people who've been through the retreat. So just be not afraid.
Now, for those watching, now Jennifer moved with her family to Lincoln, Nebraska several years ago, but Jennifer has been so dedicated to the work of Rachel's Vineyard that her phone is still the conduit for people who want to participate in Rachel's Vineyard, can call confidentially to set up participating in appointments.
And there's also there's a Spanish team as well. So just so you know that they have a separate line. I don't have that one memorized, but it is on your website. And so there is a Spanish. So we usually have one retreat in Spanish, 2 in English per year. So
thank you so much, Jennifer, for joining us. And thank you so much for your work on behalf of this cause.